register. We have door prizes after the seminar. The seminar is going to be presented today with Don Bushman. Don's been in the RV business for nearly 25 years. Is that right, Don? RVI, RVDA, Master Certified Technician. Can't get real specific on certain models, guys. It's hard to know everything on every model. But if you do have questions, he's probably going to have the answer for you. So please, when we get that point of questions and answers type thing, if you do have something specific, please speak up. The last thing I'd ask for you is if you guys have any suggestions on future seminars, what you'd like to see. Somebody suggested maybe something on appliances, how to maintain your furnace, refrigerator, air conditioner type thing. Again, if you have any suggestions, please come and see me. We'll write them down and try to put those together in the near future. Again, we're asking for registrations over here. There's coffee, donuts. Please make yourself at home. Again, thank you for coming to our seminar. Whenever you're ready.
Oh, we're ready to run. So go ahead, Don.
Like I said, my name's Don Bushman. I've been here at Pierce's 21 years. I have a few years experience other places besides that. I will try to answer your questions. If you have a specific question about your unit, I'll try to answer that for you. If I can't, I'll try to find the answer for you and get back to you. If you want to leave information, contact information with me, I can do that. There's basically two ways to winterize your coach. There's either to blow it out with air or to pump it with antifreeze. Depending on your situation at your house, whatever's easier for you to do. Pumping it with antifreeze doesn't require any equipment. You don't need an air compressor, air lines, or any of that stuff. There are some drawbacks. Some people don't like the taste of the antifreeze, or they feel it leaves a taste in their coach. Normally, if you use your coach every year, that's not an issue. But they both have a lot of things that are common to both systems, so we'll probably do it through both of them. The first thing we want to do is drain everything. I'd recommend you drain your waste tanks. Obviously, if you can't do that at your house, take it down, dump them. That'll be sufficient. Drain your fresh water tank. Pull the drain plug out of your water heater. Let your water heater drain. Open your low points in your coach, wherever they are. Drain them. Go inside. Open all the fixtures while you're draining it. Let all the water out of the system that you can. Don't forget about your outside showers. Operate your toilet, run the valve a couple times while you're draining it. Get as much water out of the system as you can before you start. It's the easiest way. The easiest way to do it. It'll take less time when you do that. Your water heater. Some of your water heaters have remote bypasses on them. In other words, it's not right at the back of the water heater like this. You might have it, especially like a Montana, you might have it in a compartment somewhere. It's nowhere near the water heater. There are lines between that remote and this water heater that we have to make sure that we get winterized. So again, when you're draining it, run that valve through the bypass mode, back over to normal mode a couple of times to get the water out of those lines as well. Some of your coaches are the same way with the bypasses on your water pumps. Montana's another good example of that. They have a location where you can attach a line and the water pump will suck antifreeze into the coach. However, that line is 6-8 feet away from the water pump. So we need to make sure that all those lines get drained and they don't freeze up as well in there. So we want to make sure we got everything drained, no water in anything. After you're confident with that, my suggestion would be that you go back through your coach and put all the valves back in the normal mode. Close all the fixtures, close everything up, put it just back like you were going to use it. It'll be easier to winterize it in that mode than in the other. At that point, we're ready to either connect our compressor to it. When we blow them out here in the shop, we always connect the compressor to the city water connection, which is, again, located on the side of your coach. A lot of coaches, they put all of that in one compartment, most of your motorhomes and things like that. A lot of your travel trailers, it's just a fitting mounted on the side, on the outside of the deal. They make fittings like this. You can see that looks like a valve stem on it that you can screw right into it. You can make yourself a hose. Most of the techs in the shop, they build a hose that has a fitting that can thread into that, and they can actually plug it right into the compressor line. So you're not out here with a little, when your tire filler, trying to fill this and keep adding air to it as you go through the system. When you winterize with air, do not bypass your water heater right away. You can use the tank of the water heater as a storage to store the air in it. So you can inflate the tank up And then as you open the faucets, the air will leave the tank pushing through the lines, so you can use it like that. If you're going to pump your coach full of antifreeze, then at this time we want to put the water heater into bypass mode. We don't want to fill this tank with antifreeze if we don't have to. To pump it with antifreeze, we need to locate the water pump. And you're going to remove the suction side of the water pump. On some coaches now, you may have this may be done for you. You'll have a pump bypass in a compartment somewhere where you just thread a hose on there, or it may even have a hose coiled up next to the pump. You'll take that out, and we want to get that into a gallon of antifreeze. Now they make pump bypass you can install. They're like this. There's a valve that has to be installed on the suction side, and then you leave this hose in your coach, and you just manipulate the valve between normal use and pumping antifreeze in your coach. That's the best way to do it, and that's probably the easiest way to do it at your house, is to pump antifreeze through it. On an average coach, it'd take about 2 to 3 gallons of antifreeze to pump it through your system. So we either have our air hooked up, and we're getting ready to blow it out, or we have our line into our jug of antifreeze now standing by the pump. If we're going to blow it out, then we go inside and we go to the furthest fixture and we open it. And obviously we just let it blow and blow and blow until no more water comes out of that fixture. Same way with our pump. We just turn our pump on, we go to the furthest fixture, we open it until it's running pink. Good flow of pink out of there. And then we continue around to all the fixtures the same way. Either we keep pressuring our air up and we keep blowing air out, or we keep running it till we see pink at all of them. When you're blowing out with air, you will get water out of the water heater backwards. It'll come out the bottom side here, and there'll be a little water left in the tank. So when you're blowing out your cold lines, you'll get a little spitting of water. So be patient until that stops. You can bypass your water heater and still blow it out with air, and that's acceptable, but we got to make sure that we get air through the whole bypass when we do that. So especially if you have a remote bypass. If you bypass your water heater a long ways from your water heater, make sure you run air through there in the normal mode and in the bypass mode, so that you get those lines between that valve and this water heater. If the valves are right at the back of the water heater, then obviously it's not that critical, and you can blow it out. It'll go a little faster that way. Is that clear to everybody so far? Okay, there's some things you want to think about at this point. One, you've got water filters. You'll either have an entire coach water filter, which is usually mounted in the compartment where you attach your city water. It's usually a pretty good sized filter. I'd recommend you remove that filter before you start. And then I would recommend you change that filter, don't save it. Put a new filter in the next year. So you take and unscrew the container and put it back in, and then you can go on either blowing out your coach or putting antifreeze in there. We've had a lot of those filters break. They trap water up in the threads, especially those big ones, and they will literally split right on the ring. So I highly recommend that you take that off when you're done and wipe it off and put it back on so that they're dry. We've had them be plumb full of antifreeze and still break. So the other filters there's filters under the sink. Normally they're specific to one faucet. That is kind of tough to work with, because if there's no bypass for that filter, when you take it out, you cannot winterize the water line that goes up to that little faucet. If you have an ice maker in your coach, that little filter is probably filtering the water to your ice maker as well. So if you cannot bypass that filter, you're going to have to leave it in there until you're done winterizing your coach, or you'll never get any air or antifreeze to that little spigot at the sink, and you'll never get it to the ice maker inside. Those are the most common types of filters you see. There's a few other ones out there, but they're normally inline filters that can be dealt with. While we're talking about that, about ice makers, they're standalone ice makers, which you don't see a lot of anymore. And there's a lot of refrigerators have ice makers in them. On the back of the refrigerator, there's a little valve, looks like this. It has a line comes up in here, or some of them come in this direction. It is the fresh water line coming to this valve. The refrigerator turns this valve on, and water proceeds up to the ice maker to make ice. You need to take this line off, and then turn your pump on or have your air there, and let it blow that line out, or run the antifreeze in that line till you get pink in there, and put it back on. The other line that goes up to the top to the ice, you can simply remove. It's straight up to it. All the water that's in that line is either going to be in the tray inside or run backwards out of the valve. This valve is a 120 volt AC valve. It is not DC. Do not take a battery and put it on these terminals and think you're going to activate this valve, because you'll burn the valve out. So it's an AC valve. You cannot activate it with battery voltage in there, okay? The other thing you might want to think about, I don't know if you guys have them, is washers and dryers. There's a lot of washers and dryers out there. If you do have a washer and dryer, the only way you can really winterize one of those is you manipulate the fill valves, obviously, to get air or antifreeze through the water lines. You have to pour a couple gallons inside of it and spin it out to winterize the pump and the drain systems in the washer. Okay? Make sure where I'm at here. After you've run the faucets and you have pink everywhere, don't forget about the outside shower. Make sure you manipulate the outside shower and get pink coming out of it. Make sure you manipulate the toilet. You get pink running down in the bowl. If you get pink in the bowl, I would suggest you leave it there, because it's good for the seals in the bottom of your toilet. It keeps them from drying out. Some people think they stain their bowls. Some of the plastic toilets it can stain. Most of the porcelain ones it doesn't bother. If you're worried about a stain, you can go ahead and drain it and wipe it out a little bit. But if you leave a little bit of antifreeze around that gasket, it's really good for the gasket to have it in there. Be generous with the antifreeze that you pour in the P-traps. All of your P-traps, your sinks, your showers, all of them. Be generous. The antifreeze is good for the valves in the tanks as well. It's good for everything that gets down in those tanks. So if you get a little more in there than you probably should, I've seen people measure it. They'll use cups and all of that. I don't do that. I just pour in there until I'm comfortable that I've filled that P-trap with antifreeze. RV antifreeze cannot be mixed with water. If you put like half and half, it's not 50%. It has to be used straight. It's also, RV antifreeze will freeze. I don't know the exact temperature, somewhere around 30 below it starts to freeze. It does not expand. That's why it works. Even if this jug froze solid, it would look just like it looks now. It doesn't blow up or split the jug or do anything like that. So at some temperature way down there, it will freeze. So we've got all of our fixtures. We've got pink in everything. We've got air coming out everywhere if we're doing it with air. We've got all of that done. We go through, the last thing we want to do is go through and do all the P-traps. We want to take and remove the filters. Most of the guys put the filters in the sink. You can put them in a bag. The filter I described earlier that mounts underneath your sink, that's a single fixture filter. When you take that out, you most likely will see black stuff running out of it. It's the charcoal inside of it. That will go away. If you were to reinstall the filter, it will run black for a little while and then it will clear up. But I would recommend that you not save those year to year. You're much better off to replace them. They just kind of takes away their effectiveness if you leave them in there over the winter. In there. Are there any questions so far?
Is there anything special you have to do to the water pump if you blow out with air?
That's a good question. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll still pump a little antifreeze right into the pump. You know, a couple of cups, just let it suck a little bit in there. If you can't get to the pump, if you cannot get the suction line off the pump, there are some traders that we sell right now where it's extremely difficult to get to them. If you blow them out good, normally you won't have an issue with the pump. The pumps are pretty forgiving. There is a possibility that that can happen. If you're really worried about it, your only other option is to pour antifreeze into the freshwater tank. And the only drawback with that is it's a battle getting that out of there come spring. You're going to run 2 or 3 tanks of water through that tank trying to get that pink taste out of that tank. So you're going to have to use your judgment on that case. If you can't get to the water pump, you're just going to have to decide. At the very least, if maybe you can get in there and pull the line off it, that would probably help. You don't need to worry about your tanks. Even if your freshwater tank has a little water in it, even if it froze, it's probably not going to cause any damage. It's pretty rare to ever see freshwater tank drains or any of that stuff freeze. They're pretty forgiving, as long as it's not full. you'll get away with it. The biggest mistake I see is people forget to drain water heaters. We see a lot in the spring. We'll see a lot of split water heaters. They'll go in and put it on bypass. They'll just forget to pull the drain plugs. This is an Atwood one. It's got a little plastic drain plug right down here. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get to. Do not put pit cocks. Do not put little deals on there that you can open, because when you do that, it doesn't clean the water heater when it drains. So you get this buildup of crud inside the water heater. So you want that big opening, so when you pull it out, you get that whoosh and it pushes it out. Especially if you go to Yuma. Down in Arizona is really bad. They have bad water down there, and they get a lot of stuff built up in the tanks in there. If this were a suburban water heater and you pulled this drain out, you'd see a long anode rod on it about that long. And don't be alarmed if that's eaten away, because that's the purpose of that rod. It will eat it down to about the size of a pencil, and at that point, you just need to replace it in there.
Now, my water heater doesn't have the rod. Is that a concern?
Is it a Suburban or is it an Atwood?
It's an Atwood.
Atwood does not come with the rod. The difference in the water heaters is Suburban water heater is a steel tank that's glass lined, very similar to your home water heater. So they put the anode rod in there to protect the steel fixtures of that tank. This is an aluminum tank, and aluminum is coated with the same material that would be in an anode rod. So they don't need an anode in this one.
And that's an Atwood?
This is an Atwood.
Okay.
There's only two. Excuse me. There's only two right now that are around: a Suburban and Atwood. There's an outfit. There's a water heater out there called American Appliance. That is a Suburban water heater.
So if you pull out your plastic plug, and let it complete drain out,
right,
is that sufficient?
Yes.
Okay.
There can be water in here. Again, as long as it's not full, the drains are open, you're not going to have a problem. Go ahead.
Now, in the washer and dryer, now, when you say turn it on just a little bit, when you're pumping antifreeze into it, turn it on for just a little bit until it comes out of the tub.
Right, till it comes out of the water valves. And I would select a warm setting, and that way you'll get water on both sides to the hot end of cold.
You just run it for a little till the antifreeze comes in the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have to put water in the bowl?
Yes.
Even after you...
Yeah, because you're not going to want to sit there long enough to run 2 gallons of antifreeze into the washer.
Maybe just turn the valves back off.
Right.
What's a safe pressure for your air?
We use 60, 45 to 60, somewhere in there. Most of the stuff's rated, I think, to about 90, so you should be okay at 60 in there. Any other questions so far?
You mentioned 2 ways of winterizing, the air and antifreeze.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do both?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
In the shop, the guys will blow everything out just because it's faster, and you're not dealing with the water so much. And you'll come to find that even when you think you have it drained, you'll open one particular faucet, and it might run a couple glasses of water out of there before you actually start getting to pink. But even that said, with 3 gallons of antifreeze on an average trailer that doesn't have like a washer dryer, you should be able to winterize that whole outfit with that, including what you pour in your P-traps. It doesn't, a 3/8 line or 1/2 inch line does not hold a lot of product. Okay, there's a lot once you got everything drained, if you can leave the drains open, or if you're comfortable leaving the drains open, do so. It'll let everything air out, especially your waste tanks. Leave the caps off, leave the valves open. A lot of people don't like to leave these open because they're concerned things might get in there, which is fine. You can close these back up. I'd also go through your coach. The valves that you manipulate, such as the water heater bypass, the water pump bypass, I would put those back in normal operation so that come spring, you don't have to worry about it. You know you're going to get water in the water heater. You know everything's going to work when you run it through there. Now, there is an exception to that. If you pump your system full of antifreeze, if you want to leave your water heater in bypass mode and run water through the coach, it'll get the antifreeze out without pushing the antifreeze into the water heater, and then you can go ahead and start using it normally. But normally when they leave here, we like to put them all back in normal operation mode so that all you have to do is put water in them and get going in the spring. Some people have black tank flushes. How many got those? That's one you want to not forget. Either hook your antifreeze to it or hook your air to it and try to put some air through it. Like on a Montana, they have a hose there for the outside shower. You can actually hook right to the black tank flush. But you want to do something to get something through that line. That line can actually be fairly long. On a Montana and a lot of your other coaches now, they have what they call a backflow preventer, which means that line goes up inside the coach as high as the highest fixture in the coach, which is normally like the bathroom sink, and then it goes back down into the tank. So you can see there's quite a long line there that you have to. So make sure you get antifreeze. You can pump it in there. They make hand pumps that you could attach to that and pump it through there if you were going to try to winterize the antifreeze. Otherwise, just hit it with some air. Air will get it out good. The other thing is, on some coaches, they have a valve where you can fill your onboard fresh tank by simply turning the valve. You don't have to go to an outside door and fill the onboard fresh tank. They call it a city water or fresh tank fill. We want to make sure that we manipulate that to fresh tank fill and pump a little air or some antifreeze through that line as well. Because that line obviously runs from wherever the city water connection is all the way to your storage tank, and it can be quite long in there. Everybody understand those? Go ahead.
So the black water tank flush, is that usually labeled somewhere? Or?
Yes, it'll look very similar to your city water connection. In fact, in a lot of coaches it's identical. But it should have a tag next to it telling you that it's a black tank flush. Be sure when you're using that you open the valve. Open your black tank valve so we don't get any pressure build up in that tank for any reason in there. We've had customers on the new Montanas put the hoses on and they'll explode. The tanks will blow the tops out of the tanks. You get too much in them. You would think with those vents that wouldn't happen, but it does. Let's see what else I got here.
Ride out for a couple of years.
There are a couple of exceptions to the blowout. They're normally motorhomes. If you have a hot water heating system, either an aqua hot or a hurricane heating system in your coach, those also supply your domestic hot water. Those have to be pumped full of antifreeze. You cannot blow those systems out. You cannot get enough air through the coils inside those heating systems for your domestic hot water to get them out. So they're very common in some of the Winnebago products we sell. You don't see them very often in pull type stuff like trailers or fifth wheels, but you do see them a lot in motorhomes. So if you have one of those, you have to pump it with antifreeze. There are some other exceptions. Monaco makes a couple. I don't know of all the brands. You cannot get to the tanks, and you have to fill the freshwater tank with antifreeze to winterize them. It takes about 11 gallons of antifreeze to get it in there to actually do the job on one of those. The other exception is, and this again usually is a coach that has a hot water heating system, they have a secondary water heater in the coach somewhere. Usually it's a 5 to 6 gallon water heater. And again, it's very difficult to get to, and you're almost surely going to have to pump it full of antifreeze. So on those particular coaches, you could get up in the 15 gallon range pretty quick. It's one of those. I've kind of quizzed everybody here. I don't think anybody here has one of those, but they are out there. So be aware of that. If it has hot water heating in it, you'll have to pump it with antifreeze. You have to pump antifreeze into it. Some Winnebago products have separate tanks that you pour the antifreeze in, but I don't see anybody here that has one of those. But they're a tank that's set down usually by the water pump. They're a small tank. They usually hold 3 or 4 gallons. And the theory is you just pour your antifreeze in that tank. When you hit bypass on the pump, it pumps out of there and pumps through your system. And the idea behind that was so you could carry it with you. People that are traveling a lot sometimes would like to winterize before they come home. They could go ahead and do that without too much hassle. And that was the idea behind it in there. I got any other exceptions on here? Some other things you want to think about when you're winterizing your coach is one your tires. Make sure your tires are inflated to the proper pressure before you store it. Make sure you can cover them. The sun is hard on tires. Most RV people replace tires because the sidewall's cracked, not because they wore out. So inflate your tires. You can inflate your tires to sidewall pressure. That will help the life of the tire while it's sitting. Most trailer tires, but not all, are sidewall pressure, but motorhome tires are not. So read the label in your coach for the actual tire pressure you should be running. But most travel trailers and most fifth wheels, when you look at the tag on the coach and the sidewall pressure on the tire, they're the same. But if you get it up to sidewall pressure, it just raises those tires up a little bit and they get through the winter a lot better. Covering them really helps in there. Empty the refrigerator. Don't leave chicken, hamburger. The smell is atrocious and you cannot get it out of the refrigerator. There's a lot of things out there. There's newspapers. I've heard things about taking your odorizer for your black tank, soaking it in newspapers and putting it in there. I've heard all kinds of things. You cannot get that smell out of your refrigerator. So clean it out. Leave the door ajar when you park that for the winter. If you can cover anything you can cover, like a cover over your trailer or cover the plastic pieces on your trailer, all of that's going to help it last longer through the winter when you're not using it.
How about jacking it up? Take the pressure off of the axles. And
you
wheels.
Can. A lot of people do that. And it just takes the pressure off the tires. I would still leave the tires inflated to sidewall pressure though when I did that. Empty the cupboards. Get the canned goods, everything out of the cupboard. For obvious reasons. They split. They make products that'll stop rodents and mice. Steel wool works really well. If you figure out where they're coming in, if you put steel wool in the holes, that stops them. Some soaps, Irish Spring, I think, is one of the ones combine crews use. Mice don't like the smell of it for some reason. You can set that down in your cupboards. Some people use mothballs, but the odor is pretty unbearable when you use that stuff in your trailer. And they sell a couple products over here. I don't know the brand names. I apologize for that, but they work pretty well too. They're just little bags of stuff you put in there.
Someone was saying bounce dryer sheets.
I've heard that too. I don't know that for a fact, but I've heard that as well. But do what you can to keep the mice out of there. Obviously, they're getting in places that we can't get to do damage in there. Your batteries, remove your batteries if you can. Bring them inside. If you have a solar charger on your coach, those will keep your batteries up. You don't have to take them out then. Normally that will keep them going good. I guess if they got covered with snow for the entire winter, it might be a problem. You might want to try to knock the snow off. But there again, we're just trying to keep the battery. A fully charged battery won't freeze. So if you have it on your coach and the solar panels are working correctly, it'll keep the battery voltage up. It will not freeze, so it's okay. But most people like to bring them into their garage. Batteries will go dead over time, even if there's nothing hooked to it. They have internal draws inside the battery, so about every 3 months you might want to put a battery charger on it and bring your batteries back up. Tag the wires. There's no code in the RV industry. There's black and white, there's red and black. So tag the wires. And if somebody adds something to it, like an electric tongue jack, that might be a totally different color than the wires that are already there. So just take a minute, put some red tape on all the positive terminals, something like that, just so you know where they go when you put them back in there. Most batteries are in boxes, plastic boxes, so you can just leave them in the boxes and set them somewhere. For your motorized coaches, check your engine antifreeze while you're working at it. You know, obviously, if it's the older coaches, it's going to be the green stuff. It's going to be the orange or red stuff in the new coaches. Try to keep it around 40 below, something like that. I think I've got everything on my list. Is there anything specifically anybody wanted to ask?
So what do you charge to winterize?
What do
A
we
regular
charge?
winterization is $89.95 for a typical winterization.
Sounds like it would be cheaper just to bring it into you to have you do it.
It probably is. And again, if you ask the guys on the service counter for every weekend, there's a $10 discount, so it's $79.95. Now that doesn't include like if you have a washing machine, you have filter systems, ice makers. There's an upcharge for that stuff. But a basic winterization right now is $79.95 for people at the.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
My fence was hooked up for a washer dryer, but I don't have it in there. Is there anything special I have to do for that?
You can, if you want, when you go to, you can open the valves and you can just let the water drain out when you've got your low points open and stuff. But for the most part, if you've never used it, it's never really got water up. It's just trapped air in there. So we don't usually worry about that. Some of the guys will open them, but once we do that, we just close them and forget them. They're usually not a problem.
What's your opinion on battery tenders for keeping your batteries up over the winter time?
I think they're great. I use them on my motorcycle. I use them at home on my boat batteries. We sell one here. I believe it's a First Interstate brand one.
Well, we have battery tender. We have a battery tender brand.
They work very well. You can get some of them that will actually tend multiple batteries separately, so that the batteries can't see each other. But I think they're great.
Can you leave your trailer hooked up to the one the charger's running? Would that keep the battery up?
Yes, you can do that. The only drawback to that is that converter is putting out a little more than a tender, and you might want to check your water once in a while if you do something like that. Yes, sir.
I do not have access to a air compressor, and I can't get to my water pump.
Okay, you can do a couple things. You can use a system like this, where you can actually attach it to the city water connection and pump the antifreeze into the coach that way. You could purchase a water pump and make a system for doing that, and that would be my suggestion. If you can't get to the water pump, and you don't want to put air to it, I would pump antifreeze through the city water connection into it.
What I've been doing in the past, use one of those squeeze bulbs and put her in there, and in the water heater, put her that way, and on the kitchen sink, take the gooseneck off, open that up, and put it down the hot side and the water on the
This particular one has a setup inside of it that'll do that. It'll hook to a city water connection. It'll hook to a particular faucet, and you can pump water backwards through the faucets in there. So that's another option in there too. Make sure you pump plenty in there though, because if anywhere where that line in that coach makes a loop, you got to trap, and we got to make sure we get antifreeze down in that location. Anything else? Yes, sir.
My freshwater tank drain is under the bed, and it's a regular faucet drain. But then there's a little T-handle you pull up next to it.
That's probably a low point drain. They used a lot of those little pull-up ones, and they put them right in line in the pipes. I would guess that that's a low point drain, probably for the cold line from the tank to the water pump or something to that effect. Anything else?
Will I be looking at 2 or 3 gallons antifreeze for this system? Thank you.
Any other questions? Did I cover everything? All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming by. We've got some stuff in the parts store. I guess they handed out some deals in there. We have covers, tire covers. We have all that. So wander over.
You want to hang around a few minutes, guys? We're going to draw for some door prizes. We just need you to register. Make sure if you didn't get registered, if you'll register in that little registration box over here, we'll give a couple of minutes if you haven't got registered. And we'll give away some door prizes real quick.
You just can't. Yeah.